Sometimes, and probably most of the time, you are, by being in the moment, not aware of which people you have a good influence on and how that influence indirectly shaped their existence for the further good, and probably even when you're feeling the worst, not for the suffering itself, but for you to find meaning and not to lose yourself even when you're in deep sorrow, which people can relate to and might see a glimpse of themselves in the suffering. Not to prevent it from happening in understanding it, but to completely destroy the suffering by turning it into something good instead. Of course, said in a truly direct way, this overall thought result needs a bit more clearness, but for now I think it's alright only to elaborate this, also so you can think further on your own, because I don't have all the answers. But this thought of to prevent a certain evil to happen by understanding it might be a part of the Buddhism consciousness of sin. But what happened to Jesus after all of his suffering? He came back from the dead, and how should we understand this? Which doesn't sound like the traditionally Christian thought on consciousness of sin, not the most popular one, can be understood and mean a lot. And as we said in the beginning, to prevent it from happening in understanding it, but to completely destroy the suffering by turning it into something good instead. There seems a little difference between these two sayings, even though you also need an understanding to walk in the suffering, but not from the outside of it to prevent it from happening, but from the inside of it to deal with it in a good manner. Therefore, Nietzsche and Mr. Kierkegaard might have seemed like depressed individuals, which there also would be some evidence for, but that is just how we all feel from time to time. And also people thinking they were against Christ, probably more a truth with Nietzsche in some degree, but they were against what we today would call culture Christianity, a form of Christianity for the mass of people that is far away from Christ. So they weren't depressed of all individuals and weren't against Christ, but Christianity for what it has become. Because they both walk in the suffering in their own way, to understand it but not to prevent it, but to deal with it to become stronger within themselves in a good manner. Of course, Nietzsche in a more radical way and a more heartless way.